all that recording and techniques here. Hello, everybody. My name is Tiemo Ehmke from ICE Bauhaus, located in Weimar. I will tell you something about the ICE hubs and networks a little bit later. First, I have to say, in the schedule, we had that topic, maker culture versus industrial innovation processes. And I have to apologize that Leo Gloman from the Adidas Group can't come today to join us. And now we have no industry partner in that sense to discuss the whole topic. But we will integrate the questions of industrial innovation processes with my other two guests. All right. Maybe some words in the beginning, 2 or 3 minutes about what's ICE. The ICE seeks to enable innovation, collaboration, and entrepreneurship in terms of actions and behaviors. And we summarize it also with the 3 words, create, share, and benefit. That is not very new, but a hard work and process. The core principles core principles of ICE are to identify, enable, and share technological and business solutions for local challenges, to invent products and services that generate sustainable incomes, to explore new methods for interdisciplinary collaboration, to strengthen community-shared workspaces, and to encourage entrepreneurship with a strong environmental and social commitment. Who we are, maybe you heard already about ICE Addis, ICE Cairo, ICE Alex, ICE Bauhaus, maybe ICE Aswan, not very officially, maybe other ICE hubs in the world, we don't know. Currently, the network consists of these 4 hubs in Addis Ababa, Cairo, Alexandria, and in Weimar. Maybe a short view to the activities of these hubs. ICE Addis is, in my point of view, more in the business of startup incubation or research support. I can tell you later after that session about the projects we did there. We don't have the time for that right now. ICE Cairo, from my point of view, is more dedicated to local solutions and has a stronger maker approach in the network than other hubs. ICE Alex, they are moving now. I don't have a picture, but I hope to see it in the near future. Is also busy with business trainings and digital manufacturing. So all ICE hubs in Africa are running under the concept of the Fab Labs, so digital manufacturing services are everywhere available. What's ICE Bauhaus? It's a bit different in Germany. We are more the bridge builder between science, economy, and culture. We work together in close cooperation with the Bauhaus University in Weimar, but not exclusively. Our understanding is more as a platform and as a platform for transfers, as a moderator or facilitator. We do trainings and workshops with the background of in the development, so-called development bird, for example, with topics like zero emission, urban resilience, or even textiles and architecture. That means we try to adapt academic content to the local needs. And maybe the last example is research and development. This project we do with an industry partner and a university and a local developer partner in Ethiopia. So that's the background we have right now, but maybe I just want to introduce you now to my talk partners. Therefore, I have to read a bit from the beta. Next to me is Dr. Bastian Lange. and he is an urban and economic geographer and specialized within the creative industries, questions of governance and regional development, and is particularly interested in socio-economic transformation processes within the creative knowledge age and refining them into a usable form for the fields of politics, business, and creative scenes. Bastian is based in Berlin. Welcome. Thank you that you come to join us. And I also welcome Ahmed Bastawy. And he's writing in his vita that he is a social engineer who believes that informal education can mediate the gap between academia and the private sector. 1 year ago, he initiated ICE-ALEX Hub to establish an enabling ecosystem for action-oriented minds, co-creating sustainable solutions for local challenges. Welcome to Ahmed from Alexandria, and thank you for all the buzzwords we have to clarify right now. Okay. Maybe we just go inside the topic with the first question to Bastian. And we try in the first 30 or 40 minutes to make some basic approaches to the topic. If you have any questions and the dynamic demands that you have to ask directly, then do it. Otherwise, I would ask you to wait maybe 40 minutes for a bigger discussion. Okay, Bastian, I read in your research work you compare systems of innovation in the creative sector with the wilderness of nature or complex biological systems. And the topic here is into the wild. Could you give us a short overview, and I mean a short overview, what your model actually describes? What do you mean?
Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for the invitation and for the opportunity to talk and also later on to discuss with you. Essential motivation from our work is that, well, this topic, creative industries, now is in the world for a decade, I would say, but there's a certain weakness and well, skepticism that goes along, because all these branch-oriented concepts try to compare the same with the same, hoping that the more sameness you have, the better a region is. We are a bit skeptical about these basic assumptions, and that's why we thought that when it comes to question of exchange, knowledge production on the basis of heterogeneous agents, you need a different concept. And we were taking advantage of a metaphor that is coming from the field of biology or ecology. Sometimes it's also used ecosystems, but a kind of ecology of different agents with different background, different institutions, from our perspective, seem to be able to contribute much better to local-based problems instead of having more from the sameness. So that's basically some of our motivation, that when we are advising ministries and public administrations saying, well, we have to encourage our sector this or that, we say, well, okay, let's do it, but think different. Try to integrate new bridges into other parts. They might to contribute much better. And on the basis of this, since a couple of years, we're very interested to better understand what kind of bottom-up initiatives, well, nowadays sometimes called makers, but just individual, small collective, seem to have much better solution instead of, well, solutions coming either from the corporate sector or from, well, the bigger economic development departments or so forth. And they seem to be much more better adapted to specific local solutions. And we try to shed light on these initiatives, try to communicate what the added value of them is for, well, larger urban planning processes or economic development in specific regions.
Okay, thank you very much. The concept of the physical spaces seems to be or has a high importance in that concept, and we try to find out what hubs or makerspace could be, even in Europe or in Africa, because there's a large variety of activities and also people doing something. So maybe I want to ask you at first, how do you define a maker, or isn't it a weak term or concept?
Well, sure, it's not very specific, but it sheds light on a specific attitude, on a specific practice, and on a specific expectation to find a adequate social partners in a specific environment. I'm very much in favor to address space not just from the perspective of a physical space, but from a context where specific resources could be approached. This might be social resources or physical or technology-based or information-based resources. And from this perspective that we trying to vote not only for new fab labs or new hubs or whatever, but for more resource centers in neighborhoods where specific things could be communicated, things could be fixed, people could meet to find adequate solution or invite international guests at a space to communicate to a neighborhood. I think these types of spaces as a kind of relational space is much more our way of understanding space instead of just, well, a space which has a roof and a door and some desks into it. This is one understanding of space. We're seeing it a bit different. Yeah.
How do you understand it, Ahmed?
You mean the maker or the maker culture generally?
I mean the makers, defining the makers or the maker culture or the hacking spaces.
Yeah. I think the movement started more than the past 3 to 5 years ago. And the basic idea was to let the people, all the people, without excluding anybody, that they can do something with their hands. That's why it's making things with their hands. Because before that, it was very exclusive on the engineers, and I'm an engineer in origin. It was very exclusive into the engineer sector to do things with their hands. And the rest of the people were not allowed to destroy things or own things in order to innovate and create more new things. And for me, I see the maker is somebody that is making things, whatever this thing is good or bad, because we have both approaches going. And for me, the movement generally has to be attached to the local challenges. So it's not only about the industrial revolution, the exclusive part, but including actually the local challenges that is existing in different countries. So the maker movement, yeah, is supporting somehow the freestyle, independency, freedom culture. But at the same time, yeah, it's bottom-up approach more.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe the next question goes to you, Bastian. Vicky, I was thinking about the maker movement or do-it-yourself movement, etc. And I found in my personal library at home a book, yes. It's nearly so old like me, and it's with over 500 pages, yeah, 330 color pictures, 822 black and white pictures, and 1,280 sketches, everything about wood. And a very special thing was also what makes children happy. So that is exclusively what I found in my do-it-yourself edge of the library. Actually, what historical background has the maker culture or do-it-yourself movement? Because for you, it's a time frame of the last 3 or 4 years as a phenomenon in Egypt, as I understood it, right?
I'm not talking about Egypt exclusively, but I'm talking generally. Yeah, the maker movement as a hype, because it's a hype now. It started over the past 5 years maximum. But before that, we have this DIY approach since we were too young. And we used to do things with our hands, but it's about how we can sustain this approach afterwards. So the idea of having spaces that is allowing the people to do things with their hands, equipping these places with machines, open source machines, was not existing to the big extent that allowed this hype to expand.
Okay, we come back later. Bastian.
Yeah, I think maybe well, the motivation to do things, is one driver. But also, I mean, it's also a reaction that many products that surrounding us are not meeting our demands. They're just crap sometimes. You cannot fix them, you cannot do something. So there's a starting skepticism, I would say, since 5, 10, 20 years, a critical approach that many physical goods that are surrounding us are not meeting our demands. So, I mean, that was also a motivation, not just to do things by yourself from the do-it-yourself movement, but to do things better, So, I mean, this is also, and from that perspective, I think you can think further how things gonna be conceptualized, designed, that you can sort of modify them, yet you can adapt them to new circumstances, that things last longer, physical good last longer. And I think this is, for me, a very positive motivation to think in terms of investing my money for physical goods, you know, also sometimes lifestyle things, okay. But I mean, if it's going to be connected with an expectation that I want to, well, secure my investment, you know, because the industry sector just is offering shit to us, you know. I mean, I think this is a legitimate motivation. So from that perspective, I think embracing the maker movement as a kind of liberation yourself, okay, this is one attitude. But another driver, I think, is that it's trying to find solution because people are frustrated, and you can extend it from the technology sector to the education, to the physical environment of spaces, to your apartment situation. In Berlin, there's a strong movement that people come together to build houses on various scales of income and money, I would say. So I think there's a general skepticism that the established system can provide adequate solution for us. You can extend it to the food level and to the eating culture and things like that. And for sure, I mean, this attitude of it's hips and lifestyle, okay, but I think if you take this a bit away and if you think broader, I mean, what the underlying motivations are, I think it's not that easy to reject it and to say, well, it's another hype and it lasts 2 or 3 years. We had creative industries, we have now the maker movement, and what's next? I think it might last.
Yeah,
what's next?
Okay, I have actually my own concerns related to the maker movement, and I consider that what I'm doing is mainly concentrated in making. So what I was trying to say when I said it's a hype, yeah, because so many people that do believe in the maker movement are doing or are actually making use of this hype in, I can say, in a negative way. But actually, as you said, that over the 20 years we have this maker approach presenting in the market. And for me, the maker movement generally, this is my aspiration as well, is to have this kind of aligned, because it's aligned with the lean manufacturing approach instead of the waterfall engineering, or actually instead of the mass production without considering the market needs or the customer's needs. So the makers for me is fulfilling the gap between the private sector or the industrial organizations and the market needs somehow. Because sometimes this industrial revolution, as they say, or they said, is pushing too many things that are not existing anymore in the needs of the customers. But what we need to do in the maker movement, instead of having it as a hype, to have it or to take it actually from this zone into another zone where they can create more impact, where they can solve local challenges, not only just once, but to replicate these solutions into production lines in the future. So it's not about the hype only, because the hype is the side effect of what we are doing.
Okay. Could you explain it? How do you make it in iceAlex? How to combine that?
Yeah, in the beginning, actually, we started as the normal approach of the hype by letting the people, or actually inspiring the people to do more things with their hands. But actually, this is not the end of the world. So doing the things with your hands is very good and is the start of the process. But without continuing this process, we will not reach to any impactable solutions or results. So first of all, starting with doing things with your hands and the DIY approach, but afterwards fulfilling some gaps that is existing already in the market. So one of the things that we realized that the other hubs might need was some machines. And because I don't believe that the hubs should be dependent to investors or donors in order to give them money, in order to pump this money back into a block of machines. So we believe in the open source culture. So we started doing a laser cutter project, for example. It's an open source. And the basic idea is to use the local resources we have in the country to replicate this project or to produce more parts of this project. And so this allows us to have the 4th prototype, for example, now, but this is not the end of the world as well. We're still working to take this project, instead of being a prototype, to exist in the market and to replicate it inside the hubs. So this is an example of what we are trying to do. trying to solve. Well, maybe another example that we have in Egypt a problem of water purification. And one of the geeks we have inside the hub or inside the community, she is working on a water purification filter. And why she started doing that? She started doing that because her family is from the village side, and she is suffering from their family. Her family actually is suffering from the problems of water. And I think one of her family was very sick because of these contaminations. So she started doing a solution. She started thinking of how to use her knowledge, how to use her curiosity to do things with their hands to solve a local problem that is already existing. And if she did one prototype and ended, this means that we're still in the childish phase. But we need to take the childish phase into the implementation into the market and to start having this kind of agile development approach for the production lines instead of the waterfall engineering.
Okay, is it direct comment or?
Yeah, I mean, it's great if that is possible to upscale, you know, these small bottom-up initiatives from these idea-driven and problem solution activities. But I'm a bit skeptical, to be honest, that we again approach this, bottom-up initiatives from the perspective of getting a mature industry-like, culture. I think, and this is probably the underlying major shift when we are approaching these maker movements, that they probably only can secure their quality when they stay small.
That's why I was saying that my aspirations for the maker movement is not only to have one prototype in the market or one product into the market, but to have these kind of production lines. That's why maybe the good thing with the makers or the maker approach generally that they are allowing this kind of agile development that the big industries should not or could not afford. But for example, one of the things we are doing in ICE Alex as well, we are helping one of the industrial companies we have into designing a conveyor system. So it's a small scale, but it fulfills a need.
Okay, good.
Yeah, next question. Sharing makes sense. I think that's uncommon, yes? Even in a monetary way, Bastian said, but I'm not sure about that, and I talk about right now maybe about Germany or Europe. How do we convince the people to think in that way? Or but it's still not that one. Banking, industry, trading sectors are completely different to that approach. Is there any solution to combine that, or do we have to live with a parallel way of different approaches and living styles?
Well, in the present time, I think it's a parallel situation. I mean, we are confronted every day with super existing big systems, corporations, and industries, and whatever. But many of them are in a severe crisis since Lehman Brothers, at least, I would say. And what we observe is a growing range of alternatives that are approachable for the individual on the educational level, on the food level, on other types of producing goods or of making solutions. And in the media and the overall coverage of how our system are reacting to this crisis, we are always confronted with that it's unquestionable that we need that type of financing institution, that type of industry, that type of corporations. But people are tending to be more and more skeptical and are then finding sort of parallel solutions on their everyday level. When you look how they approach mobility, food, clothes, and educational. So we see that they're getting confidence and are trusting, these sort of bottom-up initiatives, maker movements, I would say. And this is sort of the main, communication line, I would say, that although many institutions try to communicate us that we are in a constant crisis and the financial system has to do that and that, but no, we have alternatives. And I think that is sort of the major impact they have to convince us that we have a range of alternatives. Where do I can spend my money? Where do I buy things? Where do I send my children to school? And how do I educate them? So I think this is sort of the major contribution apart from the everyday solution to tell us we live in a world with many, many different solutions, at least from the European perspective. I'm not that sure how that is transferable to your context in Egypt, I would say.
Yeah, I've got the impression that we talk about the maker culture more in a to change the society thing, or maybe to set up for the future different alternatives, but also with the danger with the assimilation by marketing, by big marketing machineries, about lifestyle industries, etc. And I'm interested how political is the issue of collaboration. If we talk about the maker thing, we also talk about collaboration things, of new thinking, or even social responsibility in your country. How political is that approach?
I didn't really get your point, but let me answer what I got.
Okay.
You want to repeat it?
Yes. The thing is, if you talk about collaboration and maker culture, yeah, that has a political impact, yeah, especially as Bastian also described here, as an alternative, a future model, something like that. How political is collaboration in Egypt?
Yeah, I have a funny, actually, situation that happened because ICE Alex is directly in front of the Ministry of Interior in Alexandria. And yeah, for them, any red and black wires, this means that they are working in the bomb activation parts. Anyways, so basically we changed the place because of the mindset. Because if you are having all these kind of machines in a place that is existing in their zone, this means that something might happen in the future. I don't know if arresting somebody of the team or what. Yeah. Yeah, but politically, actually, the collaboration generally, regardless of the political situation, is a problem, not only in Egypt, but all over the world. Because the people started thinking in the capitalism point of view, and they think that if they didn't collaborate, they will reach more revenue streams or more channels. And this is not a right image about collaboration. It's vice versa, actually. But when it goes to the political situation, yeah, sometimes the people afraid of the bottom-up structure, especially after the revolution we had. Yeah, so the maker movement in Egypt is trying to boom up and to collaborate together, to create more alternatives, as you were saying, because these alternatives will allow the people to believe in themselves more, to create more startups or sustainable startups in the future. Yeah.
Direct response?
Yeah, I mean, this is a super big word, collaboration. Sometimes I'm really, well, a bit hesitating. I mean, what kind of skills do we associate with really fulfilling collaboration as such? And what surprises me is that apart from the digitization, I mean, the encounter with the physical material or physical goods, either in industry-related scenes or when you think in terms of urban gardening or other types of analog worlds, I would say, this relationship between how to organize the growth of trees allows you to learn the technical skills and social skills, again, to really think in terms of collaboration. It's just a positive term, you know, we'll never question it. But especially, I mean, these maker situations allow you to also relate the social dimension of the maker movement to, well, the physical doing, basically. And apart from that, I mean, also, I mean, another critical perspective on these makers is rather male-oriented, you know, ego-boosting, entrepreneurial-oriented, well, to create something. So the motivation of being a creator is also, for me, a misleading way of thinking in terms of what is practically be observed in this kind of maker situation when it comes to sharing attitudes, to commons, to collaboration, where I think a great deal has to be spent on really, well, learning the social skills and knowledge-based skills, I mean, to think in terms of sharing. I mean, at the very end, everyone has to pay his rent and to pay his apartment and things like that. So, I mean, when you think from that perspective, we have to also downscale a bit our wording, maybe. Yeah?
Maybe yes, and maybe not, you know. But for me, I don't see it like a parallel approach that is existing in the world, but I see it more how it's existing, yeah, vertically and on the social aspect, where the people have the right to share things, where the people have the right to integrate their ideas with others, or to work collaboratively together on creating solutions for some local challenges. And for the other side, on the horizontal level, it should be integrated in the collaboration area between the maker movement and the industrial revolution, because it's very important. As I was just mentioning, that we are collaborating with some industries in Alexandria on helping them doing, or maybe iterating their manufacturing process or the production lines. So I see it somehow, yeah, parallel on one side and vertical on one side. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, can we stay with the term collaboration a bit longer? Because I think how important, or my question is, how important is the collaboration between the hubs globally or in a Pan-African context? I mean, we have AfriLabs here right now at the Republica. There is the ICE Hub network in the AfriLab network. What should be intensified? Direct actions, networks, global awareness? Or how important is that collaboration?
I think the terms of collaboration should start by thinking more about the local challenges. Yeah, I know that I'm repeating this word too much because for me, I see that the makers should contribute to that because the industry will not contribute to that to the extent. And even if it extended to the CSR departments, it's not really social beneficiaries, but it's more about the tax deduction and the marketing and promotion for them. So for the Pan-African part, I think we have to think more how we identify the challenges that we are sharing in Africa, because we have too many common problems and we have too many common challenges, and these things should not be solved individually. So if you are talking about a hub in Egypt, for example, and a hub in Kenya, and this hub is working on the water problem and the other hub is working on the water problem, so where is the collaboration here? Because they have to replicate these kind of challenges or this kind of approach together to think more how to customize these solutions to their needs. So if you manage to have this solution in Egypt, we have to replicate it and customize it in Kenya, and yeah, to continue it like that.
Okay, but Bastian, do you have add some examples from your experiences, global cooperations between hubs or maker spaces?
Yeah, but they're more critical. Also in Berlin, we had a couple of maker festivals, and when you look a bit closer, they were sponsored by Red Bull at the very end. So they're just trying to access sort of the creation of fab labs on trucks, and they were sending these trucks to school, and apart from that, they were selling their shit drunks to them. So trying to communicate it at least and be present there. So so it's misused very easily, and for sure this is this, well, lifestyle skepticism towards it. I think at least in Germany and in Europe, I have the feeling that these themed spaces, either fab labs or co-working or others, are somehow connected but not very strong and not formalized. But the people are jumping within this net from space, to hub, to place, to fab lab. And they know where to go in the cities and sort of approach the city with the help of these networks. So this is, I think, a functioning system, but it's not thematically oriented in terms of sharing specific problems, maybe making a job or something like that, but not specifically local oriented common problems such as water purification and things like that. I think on that level, it's more operating in a kind of project ecology. Everyone is floating between these spaces and using them, getting access to other types of resources and networks.
Finance, of course.
Say it again?
And finance, of course.
And finance, yeah, of course. Or then making jobs, getting jobs in online, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I can't see you actually, but there's yeah, just Okay, is there a mic for? Other, just take mine.
Hi, my name is John from Kenya. I was hoping to sort of get an understanding on what this whole discussion on makers and all this is all about. Up till now, I still don't have a clear definition of what the whole maker movement is all about. Reason why I say this is, I come from Kenya, and in Kenya we've got an industry of artisans we call juakali. These are artisans who work under the sun. So they make anything from stuff that is available around, and this has been happening for many years. Are this what you describe your maker movement? That's from my understanding. Is it just a sexy word for something that is happening in Europe?
Sometimes.
I'm just trying to, as I said, this is part of my motivation to just come and understand what this maker movement is all about. Because if that's what it is, then it's been happening for so long. I mean, you just showed a book. My dad as well had something similar in his shelf many years back. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments or a direct question? No.
Well, labor biographies and job biographies are changing dramatically I think in at least in Germany or Western Europe. There's a growing number of freelancing, self-employed people, and statistically very significant. And for sure, one starting point is what we call creative industries, but it also takes place in other services and so forth. And there's a huge range of terminologies, from freelancer, culturepreneurs, and now it's a maker. And I think many of them were associated with the digitization, digital media, and digital-oriented jobs. But surprisingly, we see a kind of coming back of craftsmanship and of kind of making things and doing things, and a need for a specific material and workshop situations. And then for sure we have the digital production system, that 3D printing and a laser cutter, also apart from the real physical hammer and nail things. So this is just, it's in the world, and for sure it was never excluded or never completely away also in Germany. But it got a lot of new significance, and I told about some motivations. They're not just from the perspective of liberating yourself and finally be able to use the 3D cutter to cut out plastic caps or things like that. So, but being frustrated by what the market offers you. And from that, I think the people were starting to think in terms of doing things better. You know, that is a central motivation. And then to extend this attitude from physical goods to the level of food production, clothes, maybe your living situation, if you chairs and everyday things. And I think this is, for sure, it has been captured by some lifestyle companies and things like producing, making use and capitalizing on this. Okay, but I think sexiness is not on, and it's not so bad all the time. On that level, I think there are good, interesting solutions coming up. And I think I'm a bit enthusiastic for this and trying to advocate this also a bit.
Yeah, I completely agree with most of what you have said, and I wanted to add something, that the maker movement, from my point of view, actually is the movement that believes in the co-creation or the chain reaction of informal education. And the co-creation, when the customers decide to create their own products that meets their needs, instead of having a company generating products that is not meeting their needs at all. So this is very important for that. Yeah, that's it.
Go on.
But maybe there's no fear, you know, to see kind of how the discourse on maker movement is taking place in Western world or in Europe, in respect to, as you approach it and see it as an existing relevant resource of everyday practices of getting an income in Africa, in Asia, and South America probably. So maybe this is more interesting also from a European perspective to better understand how, I mean, these coalitions functioning, what kind of resources they have, how they're accessing market. So I don't see this kind of gap actually.
All right. Any questions or more questions? Not right now? Okay. I want to go back to the question, why is making or an open source culture so important for the so-called developing countries? Is it, I just want to ask you, Ahmed, is it a real alternative of the existing economic system? Or can you solve massive problems right now with that?
I don't believe that the maker movement now is mature enough to solve massive problems in a large, repeatable scale. But I can say that, yes, they can solve massive problems somehow. But as you said, on a small scale. So now the challenge is how to make it replicable or repeatable, and how to scale it up, and how to make this integration between the makers and this kind of grassroots exchange that is happening on the ground with the industrial revolution or industrial entities. Okay. Because this is very important. Because if we believe that both of them are parallel, this will not lead to any kind of collaboration, because they will be competing all the time. The industry is competing to create more mass production approaches, and the makers are creating more sexy words and more hypes in the cloud. But we need to put things back to their roots, and to say that the makers should focus more on the massive problems, and to integrate the capabilities and the skills that are already existing in the industrial entities to solve this problem and to create this kind of sustainable production lines.
Do you have an example from IceAlex? How do you do it? Or try to do it?
Maybe the same example, but it's not about the production line, because we are solving a problem in one of the companies. But maybe what we can do, if we manage to have the laser cutter done in a very well base, we can repeat that in different countries as a pan-African collaboration. This is one thing. And for the water purification filter, for example, if we manage to have this prototype done, because the industry does not have the capability to do these kind of prototypes, because they are all the time busy doing their R&D, but on a big scale. And we have the time to do this R&D on the small scale. So if you manage to finish this prototype, we can repeat it easily through some of the industries that are already existing, so they can support us in manufacturing, and we can support them with the ideas and the prototypes.
Okay, and how do you educate people? Maybe what is the difference between products and services in IceAlex? Maybe do we have the right understanding what a product is, or is a prototype a product, or is it more about education?
The service, for example, is doing a training workshop, and the product is having a prototype, simply. Okay. What do you think?
No, I think if you have something like a maker tour and you want to educate people to build it up, or to found a little business then in their local environment. I'm not sure about that. It's a prototype, it's a product, but what for you need a prototype? Yeah, if you don't educate or bring it to the people, the solution, I mean.
Yeah, so you mean
that... Let me say, how do you bring the solutions to the people?
Okay, so one of the services that IceAlex managed to offer was a collaboration between IceAlex and K-Lab in Rwanda, and it was basically supporting them on having a sustainable business model in order to have this kind of multiple revenue stream or multi-sided business model. And we did a training for mentors on how to sustain successful startups in their country. This is one of the examples for the services we are offering. And for the other side, example for what we are offering as product, maybe the conductive ink we have. So we have this kind of educational toolkit. Yeah, we have the training aspect of it, but we are designing an educational toolkit where the kids can use a paint or an ink with the pen, but to draw circuits and conduct electricity over that. So this will be a product that we are offering in the market for the children, for example.
Okay. To comment?
Well, not really. Maybe just adding. I think also from our expertise in Berlin and from how many from outer people coming to Berlin and approaching the city, they see the city from the perspective of a kind of openness that is very different to cities such as Munich or Frankfurt or Hamburg. For sure, they're open in that in a broader sense of the world. But I mean, in that respect, I mean, this accessibility to these spaces, to these practitioners, to these kind of networks where you can then make use of these technologies and accessing specific types of spaces with competencies. I think this is something where cities can help to upscale in order to guide, I mean, either companies or even tourists or other, visitors, I mean, to these places and integrate them in something that sort of is incorporated now also in the city. So, because then when we think in terms of upscaling of these activities and just approach the industry, I think we are missing a kind of broker in between. And I think space and the perspective of neighborhood and quarters where a kind of ecosystem might evolve, where also something what we see in Berlin, where also corporate sectors then invest into activities, fairs, and other things. That helps a bit to promote it. For sure, there's always going along with this critical attitude that they're just trying to capitalize and getting access to talents and so forth. Okay, but on the other hand, it's a kind of check and balance system at least, and where space or neighborhoods or even city districts might be an adequate intermediate system that might then get a profile of being a very maker movement driven quarter maybe that helps them to get to provide different competencies, to host spaces and things like that. So yeah.
Is it the same influence on urban development in Alexandria? Can you recognize it, or can you mention that there are some quarters of creative people or something like that? Is it the same development we know here in European cities?
Yeah, actually this happened 3 months ago that one of the factories approached us. It's one of the biggest factories in Egypt because they needed these kind of activities to be happening on the margin of what they are doing, on the margin of the mass production. And they wanted more to have access to the grassroots solutions that might affect more the customers instead of just having genuine products that are not meeting anything. So yeah, we have this kind of integration, but it needs too much effort and work from both sides, the maker side and the industry side.
All right, thank you. Any questions right now? Because I can't see you. I just don't. Okay, on the right side.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a few comments. The first one is I've seen this movement of makers growing all over Africa, but it's unfortunate we still find in our education system people only learning theories instead of practicing. So I would really ask this maker movement to also try to approach academia to see how people who are studying in universities but also in secondary schools to leverage this maker movement and be able to practice most of the theory they just learn in books. Secondly, this is a question I've been asking myself the last couple of months, is where you find people at the grassroots level coming up with good innovations. And when you look at the production costs, when it comes to scale those innovations and actually be able to commercialize them, you find that it's pretty expensive. And in most cases, they have to send this out to some, advanced factories. And again, in the end, you find that the targeted customers or clients, most of them don't have electricity. So I've been asking myself, is it the time to focus on innovation that really that are scalable but require energy, or we just need to look at how to automate some of the simple basic tasks that people do in their farms in rural areas. This is a question I've been asking myself, and I wonder how that gap is going to be bridged, because you find that in many African parts, people don't have energy. And even if you bring them stuff that are using, let's say, wind energy, maintenance is an issue. So I wonder, this maker movement, how sustainable it is, and how is it going to work? Because when you look at Africa, for example, or different countries, advanced cities use modern technologies. So only these maker movement products are suitable for rural markets, which in most cases there's no energy, there's no electricity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Actually, it's a question, it's an important question. Ahmed, you have an answer?
Actually, maybe this is a misconcept between the maker movement and the high-tech approach, and the maker movement and making generally. But for example, the maker movement might include doing chairs or furniture from the bamboo. This is still making. It's not about using the laptop in order to program some stuff or to use Arduinos to create fancy things. It's about making things that can solve the local challenges using the local resources you have. So in Africa, for example, yeah, I know that we have this problem, this big problem of lack of electricity, lack of water, lack of too many things. But we can overcome some of them by overcoming the technology, because if we do believe that we are makers, we should think how we can hack the system of being dependent of the technology, because we believe in the independency, right? Moreover, the part of the schools, yeah, for example, what we started doing in January, Alex in collaboration with Afri Makers, we started teaching or training mentors from local countries to pass on this experience to the kids. So we went to different schools, we went to different arts centers, we went to slums where the kids are there in order to train them how to use what they have in their surroundings and to change these things into adaptable solutions to their problems. So this is still existing. And I noticed that when you were asking, you asked the maker movement to go to the schools. The maker movement will not go to the school except unless you started doing that. If you consider yourself a maker, yeah, let's do it and go to the school and do things with our hands, yeah. It's not about using the computers or the high tech.
Okay, Bastian.
Yeah, exactly following the last words you said. I mean, I think it's not a linear process we're observing, where the use of digital technology enables us and allows us to solve any kind of problems. I think also, even in some peripheral areas here in Brandenburg, out from Berlin, we see a strong for sure, there's water and there's electricity, I'd say that. But I mean, there's at least a search for local resources, plants, types of food that has been produced there 50, 100 years ago, but has been excluded, you know, from the agro system there, is going to be rediscovered again and making use. And there's no, on that level, there's no digital technology part of it, maybe by doing a research on that or by, but apart from that, I mean, it's an attitude to make use of local resources and finding adequate local-based solutions.
But I can understand the question if you centered on Fab Lab solutions, yeah, in the IceHub network. That means investments, yeah, large investments and running costs, etc. That's why maybe just one question more about the Fab Lab concept. How important is it? I mean, what advantage is it to have a 3D printer, laser cutter, and some some other hardware? And how do you use it?
I can announce now that in Alex, we don't have a 3D printer, by the way. And we still call ourselves a makerspace, yeah. What we are trying to do, because we realize that, yeah, the laser cutter, the block of a laser cutter that we used to have is completely stupid. Because I remember one of the stressful days that we wanted to submit a deal and the laser cutter broken. and we didn't manage to reach the technical support because it's closed. Then we decided to hack it, and we opened it, and each part was in a different place in the room. And that's why this was one of the motives that we decided, no, we need to have our own stuff. We need to have our own stuff that is existing in the market that could be produced by the local resources. So we used the motors of the old printers. So we used too many things from old machines, the old home stuff that we have, in order to do our own stuff. So we do not need a 3D printer, nor a laser cutter, nor any kind of high-tech to have a maker space. We need the community.
All right, but for digital manufacturing, is it also available or important?
Sorry?
For digital manufacturing services, you need this hardware.
It's important, but it's not the only thing inside the maker movement.
Okay, all right. Thank you. There's another question.
So I moved from Austin, Texas, and I'm one of the associate producers for our local mini maker fair. And I just wanted to comment here that most of the makers in Austin would not self-identify themselves as makers. They're metal artists, glass artists, beer brewers, people that do hydroponics, people that do citizen science. And you know, the term maker, which I think has gotten lost in the noise, is a brand that came out of California from O'Reilly Publishing, from Dale Dougherty. And he put that brand on a citizen movement that he observed in order to give it a center of gravity. And he chose the term maker instead of hacker because most people were hacking hardware. And he gave it the name maker to distinguish it from the software hacking movement, which had negative overtones. But the term maker did not start as a citizen political movement. It started as a branding effort from a publishing company in California. But you know, back to the comment about what's the ethos of making and what's the relevance in Africa. You know, the way I understand it is it's a rebellious movement that actually started at the Chaos Computer Club here in Berlin, basically trying to understand and take control of the tools of the Industrial Revolution that we've been given, understand how they work, why they work, how to adapt the tools that made them for other purposes, use the process of learning how to control the devices of the electronics revolution, the information revolution, the industrial revolution, to help improve our lives. And that proliferated throughout the world and you know, can benefit people on the street in Africa. Existing artisans can multiply their competencies and powers through leveraging the tools and techniques of the Industrial Revolution, including electronics if they have access to them. But you don't need electronics to be a maker. You know, solving problems on the ground, problems on the street, using the tools that are available and techniques that you may not know, I think is more around the ethos of making than just Arduino projects and 3D printers. To me, the maker bots are interesting educational toys, but not practical for any real world use. You're not printing in steel or concrete or high-tech materials. You're printing in a plastic that I could get from McDonald's as a Happy Meal toy. Okay. And so I just just wanted to dive in because I see it's going into a political direction that, you know, making is about education and empowerment, not necessarily to make a political point. Okay,
thank you very much for the comment. Any response right now? On the other hand, I'm looking for the last questions because of our time set.
I'm a bit skeptical that there's one place of origin where all this started. Surprisingly, I mean, we see too many, things popping up in the world, and so I think it's more an expression that surprisingly, although maybe many people in the same time span had the same motivation to do things and then to make use and looking for the adequate technologies to hack them and to adapt them to their demands and to their expectations. So, I mean, for me, this is a very unspecific and broad term where a technology, digitization world meets an analog, a physical world again. And I think the intersection between them is so interesting, and that's sort of the driving force, which sort of the industrial sector or the service sector cannot yet do so far. And I think that is where these people people, let's call them maker, can sort of function as a kind of broker between types of knowledge, types of places, and, well, meeting local solutions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, then we take it as a final statement, I think, and maybe ask you also for a final statement, Ahmed, because of the time. Can we print a better world? Can we print a better world?
I want to add something as well.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, the maker terminology became very exclusive to using Arduinos and Raspberry Pis. Unfortunately. But actually, we have to revisit all these terminologies. The maker spaces, the hacker spaces, the spaces, the hubs, the co-working spaces, all these kind of terminologies from one side. And we have to revisit who are the makers, who are the real makers, who are those people who started solving the local challenges without calling themselves makers. Because all of these things should be revisited and reconsidered, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe my conclusion is more in terms of, let me say, more questions. Yeah, we try to find out what value sets do have the people in the maker culture. Yeah, maybe have some answers on it. I'm not sure about that. What can we expect from them more than cutting out plastic cups, or is making a real industrial revolution, or is it more an evolutionary phenomena? Yeah? How much propaganda is in it, and how can we get orientation in the whole system, and that worldwide? So thank you very much for coming. I think it's now 5:15. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you very much, and see you soon, maybe in Weimar, in Alexandria, in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, or even in Cairo. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.